I spent 2 weeks last fall helping out at my uncle's farm in rural Kansas. He had messed up his shoulder falling from a ladder, and I figured the time away from the city would be good for both of us. The land stretched for miles, cornfields, low rolling hills, and dirt roads that looked the same in every direction. No cell towers. No gas stations for 15 miles. Just endless dark after sunset. His house sat on a long gravel driveway off an unpaved road. Old 2-story white farmhouse with metal roof, a wraparound porch, and a front swing that creaked even without wind. There was no Wi-Fi, and the cell signal was spotty. At night, the silence was total. Not peaceful silence, dead silence. No traffic, no neighbors, just the sound of wind, or maybe the rustle of animals in the corn. On the 5th night, I woke up around 2:13 a.m. My phone vibrated on the nightstand. Motion alert from the front door camera. It was my first time noticing Uncle Pete had one. Apparently, his daughter had installed it after a break-in scare a few months earlier. I tapped into live feed. The image was grainy, black and white. Porch swing with steps, nothing else. No movement. I stared at it for a while and set the phone back down. Then I heard it, the unmistakable sound of boots on wood. Slow, deliberate steps crossing the porch. Not stomping, just heavy, measured thuds, one after another. I sat up in bed, holding my breath. My room was upstairs, directly above the porch. I could feel the vibration of each step through the old wooden floor. The footsteps stopped. I waited for a knock. None came. I forced myself to tiptoe downstairs. The wood groaned beneath me, every sound amplified in the quiet. I reached the front window and peeked through the curtain. The porch was empty. No movement. Nothing in the yard. I double-checked the lock on the door and flicked on the porch light. And that's when I noticed something out past the yard. The edge of the cornfield was moving. Not all of it. Just one patch near the far fence. Like someone had brushed against the stalks, pushing through slowly. But there was no wind. No animals. The rest of the field stood still as stone. The next morning, I chalked it up to paranoia. Told myself it was a raccoon, a possum, something small, despite the footsteps. But the next night, the motion alert came again. 2:11 a.m. This time, the live feed showed something. At the far end of the yard, just before the field began, a figure, standing completely still. Too far to make out clearly. Tall, unmoving, and definitely watching the house. I stepped out onto the porch. The swing creaked behind me. The yard light didn't reach the field's edge. I pointed my flashlight and swept it across the corn. Nothing. The shape was gone. But as I stood there, heart thudding, I heard it again, one single step deeper in the corn, like someone taking a slow, backward stride. I didn't sleep that night. Just lay in bed with the covers pulled up, waiting for another sound. The next morning, I finally told Uncle Pete. He stirred his coffee and didn't say much at first. Then, without looking up, he said, "That field's always had a presence. Folks used to say someone walked into it back in '87 and never came out." I laughed kind of, but he didn't. He told me the patch where I saw the figure was never used for planting, even before he owned the place. Said the soil was wrong. Dead. Wouldn't grow anything. That night, I left the camera recording from my window. At 2:17 a.m., I heard a knock. Not on the front or back doors. On the window. Upstairs. Right next to my bed. I froze. Didn't open the blinds. Didn't move. But I could feel it. That something was right there, just inches from me. Waiting. The knock didn't come again. I stayed awake until morning. When the sun came up, I reviewed the footage. The porch was empty the entire time, except for one frame. Just one, at 2:17 and 3 seconds a.m. At the very edge of the yard, caught in the light for a split second, was that same tall figure, standing at the field's edge, a little closer than the night before. I packed up and left that afternoon. When I looked back through the rear-view mirror, the cornfield seemed still, harmless, but part of me knows something was watching, and that if I had stayed one more night, it might have come closer. I bought my house in northern Wyoming 6 years ago. It's a 2-bedroom ranch with a tin roof, an old barn, and about 10 acres of rough, unfenced land. The nearest neighbor is a good 15-minute drive. That's why I bought the place in the first place, to be alone. I work remote. I don't go into town much, and I don't drink. So when weird things started happening out here, I knew I wasn't imagining them. The first time it happened, I had just stepped out to smoke. It was mid-November, clear skies, freezing cold. The land slopes slightly downward behind the barn, then flattens out until it meets a stretch of old barbed wire that marks the edge of some unused government land. At night, that wire shines faintly in the moonlight like a string of ice. Anyway, I was standing out there watching my breath drift when I saw her, a woman, standing just on the other side of the barbed wire. She wasn't walking, not waving, not moving, just standing, not facing me either, facing away, looking into the field. Her hair was long black and unmoving despite the breeze. She wore a long dress, white, I think, or gray. The light was faint. I thought it was a trick of the moonlight, but then she moved. She didn't turn, didn't walk, just tilted her head slowly, like she was listening to something in the field. The motion wasn't fluid, it was sharp, snapped to one side and stayed there. I walked back inside and locked the door. That was the first night. I saw her again a week later. Same place, same time, just past midnight. Same dress, same hair, same unnatural stillness. I watched from the back porch for 10 minutes. She never moved, and eventually I went to bed. But I didn't sleep well. That night, I dreamt about the woman, but not from my porch. I was standing right behind her, just beyond the fence, her back to me. I couldn't see her face, couldn't speak, but I could feel that if she turned around, something awful would happen. I woke up sweating. The next morning, I went down to the fence. There was no sign anyone had ever been there. No prints. No cloth caught on the wire. I checked the ground, even walked a few feet into the government field, which is technically illegal, but I didn't care. Nothing. That night, she wasn't there. 2 nights later, I woke up to the back door clicking. It's an old door, so I know it sounds. I grabbed my flashlight and a hammer, the closest thing I had, and slowly walked toward the kitchen. The door was unlocked. I knew I had locked it. When I opened it, the outside was dead silent. No wind, no owls, just cold air and stars. Then I saw her, closer this time, standing just past the barn between me and the barbed wire. But now she was facing me. Her face wasn't lit. The flashlight couldn't quite reach her, like she was standing in a shadow that didn't belong there. But I could see the outline of her dress, her long hair hanging forward, unmoving. And I swear to you, I didn't blink. She just wasn't there anymore. One moment, figure. The next, nothing. I shut and bolted the door. The next morning, there were footprints in the frost-covered grass. Small, bare, human. They led from the barn to fence. But not back. I didn't tell anyone. Who would I tell? The sheriff? A ranger? I stopped going outside at night. Covered the back window with cardboard, but the dreams kept coming. Always the same. Me standing behind her, in total silence, watching the back of her head and the fence just a few feet in front of us. But 2 nights ago, something changed. In the dream, I wasn't behind her anymore. I was next to her, standing with her, staring in the same direction. And this time, there was something else in the field. Something crawling. I woke up gasping, heart pounding like a drum in my ears. When I sat up, I saw the glow from the motion light outside the barn. It had clicked on. I peeked through the slats in the cardboard, barely lifting a flap. And there she was, right at the base of the porch steps, head tilted, staring up, no expression, no face I could recognize. I backed away, didn't look again. The motion light stayed on for 8 minutes, then went dark. She hasn't come back since, but I haven't slept either, because I know now, the field isn't what I should have been watching. She was never trying to get in. She was trying to warn me.
There's a stretch of road up in the Tennessee hills where the pavement ends and gravel begins. Locals call it the backbone, a narrow ridge that drops steeply on both sides. You can drive it, but you won't enjoy it, especially at night. I inherited a cabin near there when my dad passed. Off-grid place. No electricity, no running water, and barely enough cell signal to send a text. I kept it as a hunting base for years, and I never had issues. Until last October. I drove up on a Thursday night, arriving just after dark. The cabin sits about 2 miles down a trail off the backbone, surrounded by nothing but woods and old logging paths. As usual, I parked by the split rail fence and hiked in with a lantern and pack. The forest was dead quiet, not even crickets. That's not normal. I got the fire going fast. Something about the silence made me uneasy. I figure it was just fatigue. At around 11:30 p.m., I went outside to relieve myself and noticed a light in the trees. It looked like a lantern, maybe 300 yards downslope, swinging back and forth, pale yellow, moving like someone was walking. I turned off my own lantern and squinted. The light stopped moving. Then it blinked out. I waited a minute or two, nothing. I went back inside and bolted the door. That should have been it. Maybe a lost hiker, I thought. Unlikely, but possible. Still, I kept my rifle loaded and within reach. At 2:08 a.m., I woke up suddenly. Not from a sound. From something else. A feeling, like I was being watched. The fire had burned low, and the cabin was dim. Then I heard it. A low rumbling, deep under floorboards. Almost like a distant growl, but deeper, more like the sound of a huge truck engine underground. The cabin creaked slightly, as if adjusting, and just like that, it stopped. I opened the door and stepped outside into pitch-black woods. No wind, no noise, not even my own breath for a moment. Then I saw the lights again. This time, there were 3 of them, perfectly still, perfectly spaced, hovering in a triangle formation about 20 feet above the slope, halfway up the trees, not swinging like lanterns, just hanging there. No sound, no shadows, just those 3 pale yellow orbs suspended in midair. I blinked. They were still there. I watched them for maybe a full minute. Then they all blinked out at the exact same moment. I went back inside, locked the door, pulled a chair in front of it, sat with a rifle until sunrise. That morning, everything looked normal. Birds were chirping again. The air was still. I told myself I was imagining things. That maybe there was a reflection or swamp gas, or hell, maybe I nodded off and dreamed it all. But there was one thing that didn't add up. When I stepped outside, there were no footprints in the frost. Not mine, not anyone's. Just untouched grass and frozen leaves. Even though I'd clearly gone out. That was the first night. The second night is when things got worse. Same routine. Fire, food, early darkness. But by now I was on edge. At 1:40 a.m., I woke up to a faint tapping, like someone lightly drumming their fingers on the outside wall of the cabin. I froze. It came again. Steady, rhythmic, like knuckles on wood. I stepped slowly to the window and peeked through the corner. Nothing. I opened the door. No one. Then I realized the sound wasn't from the wall. It was from below the cabin. Not scratching. Not digging. Knocking. Like someone or something, was knocking from under floorboards. I didn't sleep again. That morning, I packed early and started hiking out. I never saw the lights again, but about halfway back to the truck, I realized my watch was wrong. It said 5:13 a.m., but the sun was high, too high. My phone said 9:37 a.m. I checked the battery, but it wasn't dead. I hadn't changed it. It had just stopped. I got in the truck and drove straight home. Never looked back. Never told anyone until now. But sometimes on clear nights, I dream of those three lights, hovering perfectly still over the trees. And in the dream, I'm not inside the cabin anymore. I'm underground, and someone is knocking back.